Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and I'm here today to kick off my next installment in the Procrastination Project. If you missed my first installment in this project, I will have it linked below, but the idea of it is to help me get to some of my physical TBR, the books that I've had on my shelves that I keep putting off for one reason or another. They're books I want to read, and I just don't get around to them. So by setting I have the last one by Will Dean. This is not a book I own physically, but it is a book I have downloaded on my Kindle currently, so that is an option. It is a thriller. It was part of a buddy read that I didn't get to at one point in time, and I've wanted to read it ever since. And then we've got Those Beyond the Wall, which is by Micaiah Johnson, probably saying that wrong. This is an author I've really enjoyed before. As you can see, I've had this hold for 37 weeks and a lot of times hitting deliver later. I think I own a physical copy of this one. Regardless, I'm pretty sure I could get it pretty easily on Kindle, and clearly this is the type of book that this project was made for. And then third option is Heartless Hunter, which is the Crimson Moth, I think is the other name for it. This one's had 21 suspensions. Libby's really calling me out by putting that information on these holds now, but this one is, I think, fantasy romance, potentially witchy. It's by Kristen Ciccarelli, and this one I own 2 physical copies of because I have the book of the month and a special edition which was from Fairy Loot, maybe, because I didn't realize they were the same book because they have different titles in the US and the UK. So this is a challenge. So I would be really happy, honestly, to read any of these, but I think I may just go for the one with the most suspensions, which would be the last one by Will Dean. This is one I've had downloaded to my Kindle from KU for ages, and I've been really wanting to get to it. So I think that's going to be book number 1. We're going to hit deliver later on these others. Maybe they'll come back up in the space of this vlog. Certainly I want to get to them eventually, but for now I'm going to go ahead and select this one, get started reading, and be back with you soon. Okay, I'm at 51% in the last one, and I'm kind of mad about my timing because I was frying eggplant for eggplant parmesan and didn't think I probably could come all the way upstairs, film a clip, and leave boiling oil on my stove, so I've had to wait to keep going. So it's going well, aside from the fact that I had to pause and continue cooking. I also realized that I didn't say anything about really what this book is about, and now that I'm halfway into it, I'm kind of glad, because otherwise I'm not sure what I would be saying at this point. This is going to be a really hard book to talk about while avoiding, of course, spoilers. So Kaz and her partner Pete are on a luxury cruise. It seems to be going really well until she wakes up the next morning and he's not there. Even more strange, when she leaves her stateroom, no one's there. The ship appears to be entirely empty, and this is, of course, a problem. She doesn't know how to sail a ship. She doesn't know how to reach land or get help when she's out in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and this is a little bit distressing for her. I feel like anything beyond that gets into spoiler territory, so I'm just gonna leave it there and say that I am really hooked on this. It took a little bit for me to get going with it, but we've hit a lot of high intensity moments. There's been stress involved. There's been things that I don't like the players involved in terms of her having some flashbacks or wondering what could have happened, and all of that is just making me want answers and want to see how this resolves. I vaguely remember people talking about the ending being an issue, and in general I think some of the negative reviews I've seen are that you have to suspend too much disbelief, and yes, I would say so far. Obviously I don't know anything about the ending yet, so I can't speak to that till I finish the book, but there is a lot of need to suspend disbelief with this. But I'm willing to do it because I'm having a good time. So I'm going to keep reading, and I'll be back once I finished with some final thoughts. Okay, I had my eggplant last night. It was delicious. And then I flew through the rest of the last one. And this isn't a short book. It's almost 450 pages, but I really couldn't put it down. So we're starting this whole procrastination project off on a really high note. Mostly we are. Again, I can't really say a lot about the plot. I think almost everything in this book is spoilery compared to what the synopsis tells you. And I think getting those surprises along the way is a big part part of the fun. And it continued to have twists and turns that I didn't always expect. There were a few that I guessed, but not that many actually, and they were extremely over the top. You do have to suspend a lot of disbelief, but in this case I was having so much fun. I was having so little ability to put it down, even though it was getting late last night and I was tired. I just needed to keep reading. So I didn't mind the suspension of disbelief in that situation. You just kind of go with it, and as long as you're willing to do that, it is a fun ride. Now, as to the ending, the ending was unnecessary. I think it pushed it to the limit of suspension of disbelief and then some more that I think it took away a little bit from my enjoyment. So this one winds up being a solid 4-star for me because I had so much fun reading it. Binged it super quick, which I haven't been really doing recently in the last week or two, getting that fully hooked on a book. So it was a big win. So with that, we do get to pick our next book. Okay, so right off the bat, we have The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels by Janice Hallett. That is one I have been wanting to get to. I really enjoyed this author's The Appeal, so this could be a good one. And then I have a book box book, and this one's one of my Illumicrate books, The Sun and the Void. I don't remember what I've been hearing about it, but it is a special edition on my shelves to get to. Warm Hands of Ghosts is actually one I need for another project, so I'm just not going to consider that one. And then my third option is The Senator's Wife by Liv Constantine. Part of me wants to try that one just because I did not get into The Last Mrs. Parrish, and I kind of want to see, is Liv Constantine not the author for me, or might a different book work better? But honestly, with election stuff going on at the moment, I feel like Senator is too election coded. So I'm gonna go between the first two, and we just did kind of mystery thriller-y, so I think I'm gonna try The Sun and the Void. I think I'm gonna give that one a go and see what I think. It is actually on the shelf right behind me. This is by Gabriela Romero Lacruz, and the edition is certainly stunning, so I'm hopeful that I will actually enjoy it and know nothing about it. Got Raina is desperate, stuck living on the edges of society. Her only salvation lies in an invitation from a grandmother she's never known. But the journey is dangerous and prayer can't always avert disaster. Attacked by creatures that stalk the region, Raina is on the verge of death until her grandmother, a dark sorceress, intervenes. Now dependent on the Donya's magic for her life, Raina will do anything to earn and keep her favor, even the bidding of an ancient god who whispers to her at night. So it has potential. It sounds like a really intriguing synopsis, and I will find out more once I get reading. I'm back with a kind of sad update. I am 20% into The Sun and the Void, and in spite of how gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous this book is, I'm just not sucked into it. There's a lot of info dump, for lack of a better term. I don't necessarily always mind an info dump, but in here I feel like we're getting too much too fast, and it's a lot of locations and names and things that I'm just not grabbing onto and remembering because there's just so much in here. To start with, the premise of this one, we're following two different women. Raina is someone from the outskirts of society. She's barely making ends meet. She gets called by her grandmother to come to her, and it's a very dangerous journey. She gets attacked by monsters along the way, and her grandmother's able to save her life using her magic, but it has lasting consequences. She's going to be dependent on her grandmother basically for the rest of her life, it sounds like. Ava is our second character. Ava's from a mixed heritage. She's being raised in a human family, but her father, who she's never known, clearly is not human because she has horns. This is based in history and colonization and the like, and you can see that in the way religion is playing into it. We have what's clearly a Catholic religion coming in because they're talking about the Virgin, and the way that they're talking about the people who are indigenous, I think, is where we're drawing the comparison to her father and her mixed heritage. And there are a lot of interesting interesting ideas going on in here, but it's just not overall drawing me in a way that I want to spend this big of a book on. I feel like it's longer than it needs to be. Mind you, I'm only 20% in, but still, there's a lot of really descriptive, like, about their outfits and the trim on their outfits, and about the buildings and all the ins and outs of all of that, which I don't necessarily mind in a book that's engaging me, but this one not engaging me, that's a little on the irritating side. I also am not really feeling like I have an understanding of this world and how the different places connect to each other. They're talking about a lot of different locations, and it's just not clicking for me. And at 100 pages in, I feel like I should have a better grasp on things. There are some interesting magical elements. The stuff that happens to make Raina be alive after the attack is really interesting, and there are things that I like in here, but at the same time, I don't feel like the characters are that well fleshed out for me. The dialogue's a bit stilted for me. I think ultimately this just isn't the book that's going to hold my attention long enough to get through 500 some odd pages of it. So the point of the Procrastination Project is to pick up the books I'm not sure about and give them a try. That's part of the point. So I gave this one a try. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but I guess that means we're going to have to pick another book. Okay, let's see what we have. Starting off, we have Legendborn as an option, and that wouldn't be a bad idea. It's a reread for me, but I need to reread it in order to pick up the second book in the series, which would work out well because I do have the final book support group coming up, and I did make this one of my priority series for that. So that's potential. And then The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels. I have this ebook on hold, but I do own the physical book, so it would still be getting to something on my shelf. And I know the audiobook's available for that one. And that one is a mystery, obviously. And I have really enjoyed the author's books in the past. And then the third option is Full Throttle by Joe Hill. And I do tend to like Joe Hill. I do believe I own this book on my shelves, I think. But I'm not sure if I'm in the mood for a Joe Hill right now. So, Decisions are hard. I think since I've read a couple fantasies in a row just now, and then obviously put down one of them, I think I'm going to go with The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels. So I don't remember anything about this one, so I'm just going off what the synopsis on my Libby app says. It says it's about a true crime journalist who revives a long-buried case about a cult and finds herself too close to the story. The Alberton Angels were a cult who brainwashed a teenage girl into believing her baby was the Antichrist. So I'm intrigued. I will be reading this one next, and I'll check back in with you once I get going on it. It's now Saturday morning. I had grand plans of going out into the world and doing something today, but allergies have hit me hard. We have something called the Santa Ana winds here, and when they come to town, the temperature spikes. Typically, it dries everything out, including me, and it triggers all the possible allergies. So it's been a rough morning, but taking the moment while I can temporarily breathe to tell you that I am now 40% into The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels by Janice Hallett. The chapters, or the way the audiobook anyway is divided, are like 2 hours long. And that's because there's not really typical chapter divisions in here. It's all mixed media. And it's Snapchats and transcripts and a little bit of narrative here and there. But it's narrative like notes that somebody left while they were researching this Alberton Angels case. So I really enjoyed that format from this author's The Appeal, and then there was the Christmas Appeal. Both of those I really enjoyed. This one has the same format in terms of being all mixed media. It's a little bit different in the sense that there's less humor, which isn't to say there's none, because there are snarky moments when our researcher doesn't like the way things are going, or there's moments where she's clearly kissing up to one person and then turning around and kissing up to a different person and telling people multiple different things just to get her story. So there is humor to it. I would just say it's a little more on the subtle side. This case is well known and well documented in the media, but it basically was a group of men, 2 teenagers, and then their baby, the teenager's baby. And therefore, since the teenagers and the baby were underage, there's a lot of people who weren't able to be named in the media, and therefore they're trying to find these teenagers and this baby to get a unique take on it. Our main researcher, Amanda, is a true crime writer, and she's not the only one going for this story. So what happened years ago is that the men all died or killed themselves, and the teenagers survived, the baby survived. They had convinced these teenagers that this baby was the Antichrist, and apparently the teenagers did buy into this. It's very much a cult type setup with a religious background, and I'm finding it very intriguing. I think I mentioned I'm at 40% because that's where the chapter divisions hit. I have been reading a lot of this on audio. My eyes are very tired with the whole allergy situation, so it is a really good audio to pick up. There are multiple narrators to help pull off some of the interview formats, and you get different people weighing in at different points. If you can hear Kylie eating behind me, of course she decided to eat at the time I'm filming because that's the way to work around here. Anyway, I do like the transcripts. The transcriber is putting her own notes in, which is both totally normal in the sense like there's a pause here, or someone took a deep breath, those types of things, or I couldn't understand this part, it was too mumbled to transcribe, but also the transcriber's putting her little things in here, comments to our researcher Amanda, which I find amusing as well. And overall, I'm having a good time with this one. It was a light, easy read to get into last night and continue this morning when I couldn't sleep, so it was good timing for that as well. So with that, I'm going to keep going on this one, get some coffee, bundle up, and continue reading. I'm back because I have finished The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels, and I really enjoyed this one. I think it took a little bit longer to get fully invested in it, with the subject matter being a little drier than my previous experience with this author, but once I was invested, I really enjoyed the way the author played with the art of writing this book, of the investigation aspect, and the way stories get manipulated. I think that's fair to say. We've got a true crime author who is reaching out to witnesses and other people who have historical knowledge of this case and writing things in a way to elicit responses, which aren't always 100% accurate or truthful. We've also got a rival of hers who is pursuing the same case, and we're seeing the correspondence between them and their different approaches, and her kind of trying to influence the attack he's taking so it won't negatively impact her ability to tell a story. The book opens with a statement. It says, "You have a key that opens the safe deposit box. Inside is a bundle of documents, archived research material for a book that has not yet been published. You must read it all and then make a decision. Either replace the documents in the box, then throw the key where it will never be found, or take everything to the police." And I wasn't sure what to make of that in the very beginning, but it really does tie to the way the story goes, the way it ends, and I really liked that as kind of the idea, because this would be a great book for discussion. It raises a lot of kind of moral questions, and having the author put the reader in a position of reading all of this and then having to make a decision at the end of what would you do is really an interesting approach to it. So this winds up getting a very, very strong 4 stars, I think, from me. It was slow in a few places, but I really just enjoy it. This is an author I definitely will be continuing to read in the future. So with that, I'm very glad that procrastination-wise, I finally got to this one. So let's hope the next book is as successful. Okay, let us screen record and open Libby. Okay, I've got Forged by Blood, which is either a Fairy Loot or an Illumicrate book that I haven't gotten to yet. I've got Those Beyond the Wall, which I'm assuming to be sci-fi. And then kind of out of left field, I've got All Roads Lead here, which is romance. But this is romance by an author that I have enjoyed before. I really liked Culty by Mariana Zapata, but also when I saw Those Beyond the Wall, I think in our first pick, I was kind of hoping it would come back up again. And I just did a whole lot of special edition book box books, so I kind of want to rule out Forged by Blood at the moment. And I think I'm going to go with Those Beyond the Wall. I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me grab it. So this is by Micaiah Johnson, who wrote The Space Between Worlds, which I really, really enjoyed at the time. And I don't know anything really about this one other than it's an author I know I've enjoyed before. It says, faced with a coming apocalypse, a woman must reckon with her past to solve a series of sudden and inexplicable deaths in a searing sci-fi thriller. So it sounds like there's a mystery element, thriller element, sci-fi element. Sounds like it could very much be right up my alley. So let's hope for success, and I'll check back in once I get reading on this one. I'm back with an update on Those Beyond the Wall. I apologize, I have no voice. Managed to get sick over the weekend. But I did want to give an update because unfortunately this is another DNF. This is set in the same world as The Space Between Worlds, the author's previous book that I loved. But this one takes place entirely on this particular planet, or in this particular world, I guess I would say. And it's investigating a series of deaths, which are interesting, but I'm finding it to be very slow. And there's a lot of characters to kind of keep track of, and politics of the world that just aren't grabbing my attention. And that could fully be me not being fully in my brain, functioning brain, with being sick. So that could be part of it. But I sat down to try to listen to the audiobook yesterday and I just could not get myself invested. I made it about a third of the way through and I just have to give up and put it down. I think the premise in the first book was really what drew me into it. It was shorter, it was snappier from what I recall, and there are some similarities. I mean, we're in the same world, of course, but it just doesn't have that same appeal that the first book did. So sadly, I'm gonna let this one go. So I do need to pick another book. Hopefully I can find something a little lighter, a little easier to digest. That would probably be better for my brain. So first up I have The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. I think that would probably suit the bill. I have Twin Crowns, which I don't know much about. I have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. That one I know is an easy one to dive into. And it also works on my catching up with series goals for this month with the Vinyl Book Support Group going on this week. So I think I'm going to go for that. And hopefully I'll be back with a more favorable outcome and an update at the halfway point. Hello. As you can hear from my voice, the whole sickness thing has settled in. So I apologize. And I'm going to try to make it through this and wrap up this vlog. I was hoping to get one more book in, but I think that would be pushing things a bit. So let me go ahead and give you my thoughts on Reckless. I decided not to do a midway on this one, partially because it's a series and partially because of this. So this is the second book in the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts. And the first book we were following Peyton, who is an ordinary, meaning she doesn't have powers, in a world where anyone without powers is meant to be banished or killed. We're also following Kai, who is an elite, meaning he has powers, and also a prince. And Peyton has a very messy history with the palace, I guess you would say, and we were following them in a trials setting in book one. Things went crazy at the end of that book, and this book picks up where that one leaves off. So obviously I can't say much about the plot of this one. My idea to pick this one up when I wasn't feeling well really worked out well. It was very easy to just sit, listen to the audiobook, and binge read it. That said, it did very much feel like a middle book, like a getting from the excitement of book one to what seems like it'll be excitement for book three, and kind of a bridge in between. And I wasn't 100% hooked. It felt like for this long of a book, not that much happened. There were a lot of conversations that felt repeated. There were a lot of kind of feelings coming out between our characters that had already happened once before. And in the end, it was a solid 3-star read for me, maybe a 3.5, but not a new favorite. I will definitely be picking up the third book when it does come out, however. So this ends things on somewhat of a success. So even though I'm cutting it short, I did at least take 5 books off my to-be-read list, even if 2 of them wound up being DNFs. But that still makes for somewhat of a success in my mind. And hopefully when I come back next time with another one of these episodes, I can avoid allergies and illness and have a little more success and find some really big wins. I did really enjoy my time with my first book, The Last One by Will Dean, and The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels by Janice Hallett. So those were fantastic, and I still had a good time with Reckless. So overall, I'm considering this a success. But with that, I will give my voice a break and wrap it up here. Let me know in the comments below, have you read any of these books? Do you have any magical cures for allergies and voice loss? I'd appreciate those. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me a sun or a moon emoji to support my grief in the fact that I did not love that gorgeous sun and moon sprayed edge edition book. I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button below if you enjoyed this vlog, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my procrastination reads, hopefully less of my lack of voice, and all of my bookish thoughts. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.